Leona, the Latin for lioness, because these names tell a better story of who I am. If I was to describe myself using one word, I would say that I was a hunter. Not the kind that observes and pounces, but the kind that takes years to chase down their prey and then instantly turns their eyes towards something else. The start of my profession dates back to the year that I turned 7. This year, I received my first ever report card from 1st grade. It was in a big blue envelope taped shut with my name scribbled across the front in a fancy cursive font. I peeled off the tape slowly, careful not to rip the report card, and revealed not only letters and numbers, but also comments. I received a comment from every single teacher, and most of them said something along the lines of this. Susan is a very smart child, top of the class, but tends to be a bit shy. It would be better if she engaged a bit more in class. Among all this, there was one phrase that drowned out everything else. Top of the class. This phrase lodged itself neatly inside me. It meant to me that my effort was seen, that I was better, and my pride inflated. It was delicate, but shiny and floating, like a bubble. So, at the end of my 2nd grade, I tore open my envelope as excitement pooled inside me, rushing through my body. I pulled out my report card. I read the comments. Susan has become a much more outgoing and talkative person, but this sometimes distracts her and her classmates from class. I froze. I turned the report card over. I rummaged through the lines between the letters, searching for those words. The words I had waited an entire year for. But I couldn't find them. I scanned the margins. They weren't there either. I haven't found them in any envelopes ever since. But this never stopped me from chasing for them. In fact, I had chased them for most of my life. This is something interesting that we do as humans. We cling on to the identities that belonged to us in the past, that no longer belong to us. Everyone understands outgrowing bad identities, right? Shyness, anxiousness, nervousness. This is called growth. But what about the good identities? What about studious, athletic, artistic? We never realize this when our identity dies or fades away. There is no pause, no falling curtains, no bow, and no commotion. Because most of the time, it's just another subtle decision. Pieces of our identity fades away quietly into the distance while we are too busy growing to bid them farewell. But the various forms of ourselves, whether it's a talented athlete or a hardworking student, they don't leave easily. They linger around, and they follow us. And we keep checking our progresses against them. Am I still as smart as I was? Do the same people still like me? Am I still as funny as I was? The list goes on and on. Psychologists say that identity develops in 2 stages: exploration, then commitment. In that order, you explore, then you reflect, and finally, you choose. But sometimes that order becomes flipped. Think about it. From the time you were very little, people put labels on you. Oh, you're the smart one, born to be an artist. We receive these labels, and sometimes we don't like them. We get rid of the ones that we don't like, or the identities that don't suit us. But more frequently, we lean onto these identities. If a teacher says you're top of the class, you start chasing good grades. If a coach says you're a talented athlete, you start chasing performance. If your parents say that you were born to be a doctor, you start imagining yourself saving lives. Marcia called this identity foreclosure. In simple terms, it describes a situation when someone commits to an identity too early and stops considering any other alternatives for the spot. There's no questioning, no experimenting, just habit. We accept these identities because they made sense once. We were the ones who chose them, and that they were the ones who made us, us. And because of that, letting them exit the stage feels like peeling ourselves away layer by layer. So many of us choose to keep these layers. And we look successful from the outside. We look responsible and high-achieving. But identity foreclosure comes at a cost. It's not a volcano that explodes dramatically, but a river that erodes calmly. It may show up as chronic dissatisfaction that you can't explain, anxiety when your path is questioned, feeling threatened by people who live different lives, or deep fear of failure. But here's the part that we never realize. Our past selves didn't know who we would become in the future. So why let them decide who we get to be? A child doesn't understand the environment that they would one day enter, the people that they will one day meet, or the challenges that they will one day have to face. So why do we perceive their decisions as final? It's possible to outgrow a strong identity just as completely as a weak one, because an identity can fit us beautifully at one age, but restrict us completely at another. What once felt like confidence and trust may feel like pressure and anxiety at a different stage of life. So we could try getting rid of these identities. Now, sometimes we idolize a past self, but when we do that, we stop investing in the current one. We become obsessed with who we were and stop looking into who we could become. We become trapped in a story of the past, a swamp of the past, and we strive to live as photocopies of an expired identity. But oftentimes we fail, not because we're weaker, but because these identities hurt us under a different setting. So now, we all know what identity foreclosure is. Let's talk about why it's so hard to avoid and how we could change it. Sometimes identity foreclosure isn't about success. It's about the love that you're carrying. Family expectations, religious expectations, social expectations. From a very young age, my mom had made up her mind that I was absolutely perfect to be a dentist. So I've always tried to like biology, to like brushing my teeth. But truthfully, I think poking around in someone's mouth with a mirror and searching for treasures between their teeth is a little disgusting. So I've always wanted to pursue a career as an ice cream truck driver. But when I debate between these two jobs, I've always felt a tinge of guilt. Like I was betraying my mom. I was betraying her expectations. And in the same way, growth may feel like betrayal of an old self. But we must also remember that growing up is the only way to make space for a person that's blooming inside you. So try and ask yourself, did I seriously consider alternatives to my path? If no one expected anything from me, would I have made the same choices? Do I feel excited about my future or just obliged to live it like planned? And try some new ways of measuring success. Instead of asking, am I impressive? Try, is this truly what I want? There's something impressive about making choices, because they are the only things that will be completely yours. And even if they evolve, even if they change in the future, at least they were yours. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When I look back to the girl I was, I don't see someone that I failed to be loyal to or someone that I need to become. I see someone that carried me as far as she could. Someone that did her best with the world she knew. But it wouldn't be fair to bring her into the world that I'm in right now, because she doesn't know the people I have met, the voices I have heard, and the things that I'm expected to say. So we're all allowed to outgrow our identities just like we outgrow our clothes. And we don't need to chase anyone, nor do we need to hunt them down, because the most impressive person we'll ever meet are the ones we're still becoming. Thank you.